Awesome. So just introduce yourself.
My name is Arseneaux. I am the producer on Hybrid at Fifth Cell.
And just give people a primer on what Hybrid is.
Sure. So Hybrid is a third-person shooter set against the backdrop of this persistent online world war between two factions, the human paladin and kind of like the alien variants.
And the concept of the game is a little bit different. It's not exactly an archetypal third-person shooter. Do you want to talk a little bit more about how you came about with the idea for a game where it's almost entirely cover-based, just jumping to and from cover points and all the sort of little finesse that's involved with fighting to and between those points?
Yeah, so we wanted to bring something unique to the shooter genre, right? You know, that's Fifth Cell's mantra, right? Always bring something unique to the market. So like what can we offer shooters? Well, let's have cover actually matter, not be a hindrance, but actually enable, right, the gameplay, right? So the reason why we have that is to have cover movement only. We restrict you from cover point to cover point, and that allows you to basically put cover anywhere, even on parts of the map that would normally be inaccessible, like the ceiling, for example. So that's what we wanted to offer.
And how long have you been working on Hybrid?
It's a 3-year project. First year was kind of pre-production because of its unique nature. We had to solve problems nobody else had to. Like nobody has like a unique like restricted cover-to-cover movement system. So we had to prototype that, iterate on it. So the first year was really like pre-production. And so yeah, 3 years total. Last 2 years, the game has really just taken form now.
And working on that idea for as long as you have, I was noticing when I was playing it, all of these little sort of subtleties with how people started to juke each other out emerge. Like during flight, one of the other guys was saying that if you cross paths, you can just press a button and start reversing, so you can flip around the guy and flank him midair without him knowing. What was it like trying to make the game balanced at the same time? All of those little tactics that players come up with were emerging. What was that like?
So a lot of that was just emergent. Like we didn't know like the gameplay would evolve into this sort of dog fighting stuff in the air. We kind of just discovered it, right? We would just kind of like implement like, the fact that you could press B to instantly go back to your previous cover. Players then started using that as a way to kind of stay between covers in the air and kind of juke people out, like you were saying. So it's kind of just a happy accident, honestly.
And before it was mentioned that it's not just sort of like one-off matches of deathmatch and all of the other different kinds of modes that you have in there. There's a sort of a persistent world. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So basically, in the background, right, the meta game of Hybrid is the fact that everybody, when they first start Hybrid, they choose a faction. They choose to be a variant or they choose to be a paladin, kind of like an MMO, right? They're able to do faction changes later on, but basically we want you to be like, I'm a paladin, I'm going to fight for the paladin cause. And you do that on the world map. Now a world map contains all players on one server. There's not separate servers for Hybrid, there's just one that everyone participates in. So what that means is that when I go into battle and I get a bunch of XP, I'll bring that XP out to the world map and push the front line of my army further and further. And everyone globally can see that happen.
What's the benefit of pushing that front line further? Are there any sort of global benefits, say, if one faction's doing better than the other in a particular week, per se?
So actually, we have the World War actually will take probably 2 to 4 weeks because basically both factions are vying for control of this substance called dark matter, which is like a new resource. And so basically they're both racing to get that resource. The more resource they acquire, the nearer to the end of the war comes, right? And so basically when one faction gets 100 dark matter, like it's just a value we have in the game that's a simple readout, then there'll be a winner of the war and a loser of the war. Whoever gets more dark matter wins and the other faction loses. And then what we'll do is we'll reset the world map so that we start over with another world war for more resources.
What does that mean if one faction wins and one faction loses, like for each player per se? Do they get, is there any sort of representation of how many battles that each player has been a part of and how many times their faction has won in the global war?
Yeah, so basically there'll be a brief summary when the war ends saying like, hey, this is what you did, this is what you get. Each player will get individually tailored rewards as well. So that if I'm on the winning faction, I'll get this awesome new helmet to wear, and if I'm on the losing faction, I'll actually get like a paper bag to wear over my head. And we actually call it the bag of shame. It's actually kind of cool.
And just speaking on the sort of design of the characters, it's really sort of like chunky but clean sci-fi almost at the same time. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that art style came into being?
Well, actually, we revealed the game at GDC 2011, and at that time, it was like this grim, really gritty, realistic, kind of like war-torn, post-apocalyptic kind of art style. And we took a serious look at the game after GDC 2011. We're like, let's take an extra year. Let's redesign our characters to make them look more accessible, bring up the color a little bit, try to make it feel more sci-fi instead of all just gritty and dark and destroyed. Because actually being able to have character recognition while in the map is very important, right? So we feel like we've accomplished it with this new art style.
Was there any other thoughts that you had on the game that you think people should know about? Any other sort of interesting anecdotes about how certain things in the game came to be?
Well, iteration is king at Pistell. We feel like we've brought a unique experience to the shooter genre. We want you to try it. It's on Xbox Live Arcade. There's going to be a free trial. Go ahead and pick it up. It's going to be in some of our arcades this summer, so check it out.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.